I'm still not saying what I'm trying to say.
Welcome back, listeners, or if you are new, welcome to the Digital Divide podcast. I am Justin Fry.
And I am Joshua Charletto.
This is episode 26, so let's cut to the chase. Ooh, Josh-DriveSavers iOS passcode.
I saw this today and I wanted to put it in here.
Are you ready to talk about it? What the heck is this?
Yeah.
What is DriveSavers? Who is?
They used to, and still do consumer level hard drive data recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're reporting that they can break into iOS devices.
That's good.
And they charge $3,900 for it. No, it's not good. It's just interesting because we've talked about stuff like that before.
So isn't this the same box that they were using with the trying to unlock criminals' phones to gather information? Like this was being used by law enforcement?
Yeah, similar, I think. But I think that they have their own version now.
So this is a consumer grade?
Yeah. So they charge $3,900 for the service. They bust into your phone. And they apparently can do it without any help. They can just bust into your phone.
Well, they can't do this with an iPad. What happens if I wanted to bump into a new iPad Pro? These only have the lightning cables here, according to this picture.
I guess. I don't know. That's assuming that
flawed.
It's lightning that's flawed, which I doubt. I feel like they're doing it some other way. So I'm not sure. They don't give any details here. But the point is that they apparently can break into iPhones without having the passcode, which is interesting. Because I would like to see if they get proven wrong.
Yeah.
I doubt that they will for $3,900.
That's an investment.
Yeah.
Do you get that now? Is that just for them to do it? I mean, if you don't have these answers, that's perfectly fine. But $3,900 just to do it, or do you get the box?
I don't know for sure, but usually, so I've used DriveSavers before for customers at other places I've worked.
Yeah.
And the way that they typically operate, and the way that a lot of these places operate, is that they charge you up front, and then it's as best as they can do. So if they get you nothing, you're out the cash, and there's nothing. You spent a whole bunch of money for nothing.
That's kind of silly.
But some people are so desperate for the data, or, sometimes companies are so desperate for the data, it's worth more than what DriveSavers charges. And there are, I'll say, enterprise grade companies like this who can pull data from hard drives that have long since been erased, and I'm putting erased in quotes, that can do it at a different level than DriveSavers. I don't know what that means even on a technical level. I'm not 100% sure. But they have tools that have an even greater ability at success. And so they charge tens of thousands of dollars
I can
for
imagine.
services like that. And companies are happily waiting to pay that money if they're in that situation, because sometimes the data that's involved is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions or billions, it goes on and on. So, but I thought this was interesting because we've talked about, at least for me, security is such a huge part of why I choose iPhone.
Yeah. And why Apple stands by that security.
Correct. Apple stands by it. They've said no to law enforcement several times in public.
Yeah.
Who knows if they've said yes behind closed doors? Maybe they have. I wouldn't doubt it. But in public, they've said no. And nobody else has reported the ability to do this as like a service that somebody can go pay for publicly. So I thought this was interesting. DriveSavers getting into your iPhone real fast.
Yeah, I'm kind of lost for words if this is really a good thing or a bad thing. Especially because it says lets consumers retrieve data. Like the idea that it does that is nice, but the implications of what it can be used for in the wrong hands is my concern. But there's always like a double-edged sword to almost everything nowadays, right? When it comes to technology.
Yeah, this one though for me, I see it as a negative thing, and the reason isn't that Drive Servers has the ability to do that. I trust them relatively so, I guess, because I've used them as a service for customers, and they've been very sensitive about the data that they pull.
Right.
So I have firsthand knowledge of how they generally handle their business. However, if they can do it, that means that somebody else can do it.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
no way that they have the only people in the world that can do this. So I don't like that. I'm hoping that it's wrong and that it's proven wrong, or that they're just charging, maybe they're being even more malicious and charging a lot of money for a service that really does nothing. And then they say, "Oh, we couldn't get anything." I mean, that's the worst case scenario, but still, I would prefer that over them being able to bust into iPhones without people's permission. So, or
Well,
with people's permission, really. So,
well, I have some good news for you. I have something that doesn't cost a lot of money.
okay.
This thing actually just came out, and if you're really interested in getting the new Fallout 76, it was already discounted at I think it was Humble Bundle
Yeah, I
for
saw
it
that.
was like $40. I think it was something silly. But
Fallout 76 is a video game that is in the newest video game in the Fallout franchise, correct,
by
Justin? That's
yes, by Bethesda for the
yeah.
yeah, exactly. So,
Okay.
and to me, this is really surprising. I wanted to transition to this because it is yet another one of those pieces of news and more like pieces of news that shocks me that this is how quick and fast it is falling. And I hope that it doesn't fall too far because I'm a huge fan of this series. Specifically, Fallout 3 was amazing. But to see something like this kind of have a really shaky start, um, and it seems to be in a very dark place right now. And then within not even 2 weeks of it being released to people, I mean, I can't remember I have to verify when this was actually released, the actual game to everybody, but as of
I think
last
last week or something.
yeah, within the week or so of it coming out, there was already discounts for the product. So, not a good start. I know sometimes games do this for like a console games. This will happen often during the Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale shenanigans, but it's still kind of concerning, and especially all the flack that it's getting. I mean, it's very unstable according to several reports, and to see something like this kind of crumble right off the get go is concerning. But this wouldn't be the first time Bethesda has released something that had high expectations, kind of hit a bad spot when it came out. Ender, the Ender Scrolls Online had the same issue, and we were discussing this earlier that it had gotten a whole lot better as Bethesda kind of stepped back and started working on massaging a lot of the issues, whether it was technical issues or server issues and things like that. So, hey, if you're looking for a sweet deal, which is probably over by now, but you can pick up a brand new game for $40.
Yeah, I saw that too and was shocked by it, although I guess not shocked. I guess surprised, even though they've been having all these reports about all the bugs and stability issues, and the game isn't that great, and so on and so on, which is troubling by itself. I mean, it's a $60 game, for goodness sake. Like,
Yeah.
if you're gonna release a game at $60 and call it AAA, I would expect a lot better than that personally.
I mean, they
And
only get
I,
more expensive. It's not like they're
yeah,
getting
and
cheaper.
I think that people agree. Like, and I think that's where this is coming from. That your franchise has a long history of great games. Don't mess it up with something that's ridiculous at $60. And personally, I wasn't really plussed about the game. I
Right.
enjoyed Fallout 3. I didn't buy Fallout 4 because I had kind of burnt out on Fallout 3. I played a whole bunch of it.
There's
I
a
couldn't
lot.
get
It's
into
a
New
big game.
Vegas.
It's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. Um, and 4 had a bunch of mixed reviews, if you remember that
Yeah,
too.
I am one of those people who I liked it a lot, but I didn't like it where I spent the same amount of time I spent with Fallout 3, where
Yeah.
I picked everything apart. I went through as much as I possibly could for the side quests and all the things you can get. I didn't do it for this, and I want to get back and play it because I feel like I've missed out realizing I barely even scratched the surface. I feel like I should go back and, you know, tackle some of this. But
Yeah, but it's up to them to grab you. You know what I mean? And hook you in.
yeah,
And it's a Fallout game. There should be, I mean, this is a series that grabs you right away. That's how the original games were, and these remakes are similar and should be similar. And this game, they announced this game and announced that it was going to be online multiplayer at all times type of situation, like a massive multiplayer game. And I didn't understand why they were doing that. They did not make that clear, and they did not make it clear how it was going to benefit the game that is going to be online all the time. I'm worried that we're stepping into this like world of video games where if you're not Dark Souls, you're trying to be,
yeah,
and everyone seems to be scrambling to have all of the Dark Souls features or parts of them. And I'm not really into, and we've talked about this before, and I don't want to make this a huge thing, so I'm going to try and stop. But we've talked about this before, how like everyone's adding open world to games, even though their games don't necessarily need it.
yeah,
You know, and
or meant are not meant for it. Like,
yeah, or
games can
benefit
make it.
from it.
Yeah,
Exactly. And I think we're seeing that with the online multiplayer aspect as well. Dark Souls and its, later games changed the whole meaning of what that is to have an online game. And I feel like people keep bolting that onto games that don't necessarily need it. And personally, I'm with you. Fallout 3 was an amazing experience, so much so that um, some friends of mine have always talked about Fallout 1 and 2. Fallout 3 made me go back and play Fallout 1 and 2 and love them.
I've never
And
actually played either of those.
yeah, they're way more RPG-esque and like top down, so it's a different taste.
Yeah, of course.
But I've played games like that for a long time, and I really enjoyed them. But the point is that your game is a certain kind of thing. Bolting on new features that are, of market leading games is not going to make your game market leading. Like you need to put your passion into your game for what your game should be, and it should look different. So I don't know. Now I'm on a rant. So anyway, Fallout 76. We'll see if it turns out okay.
Yes, let's go to a more exciting thing. I guess I don't want to be so dismal about things that are happening in the world.
Yeah. What about your new iMac, Justin?
There you go. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I mentioned the last episode that I was recording on a new setup. So I ended up purchasing an iMac 27-inch, the 5K, this 2017 version, or the most recent version, I guess. I went for the mid tier, so it has like and not to get too into things, people. I got the mid tier, so it has like the 575 Radeon. I upgraded to 16 gigs of RAM, so I ended up purchasing third party aftermarket because it was 100 times cheaper to do
Sure.
that. But yeah, I didn't realize how awesome this screen is until it booted up for the first time and realized, wow, I thought my uh, Retina screen on my MacBook Pro, the 2013 year model, was amazing. Wow, this is fantastic. But it's been awesome. I'm rocking a nice i5 processor, Intel i5, so it's doing really well. I ended up doing a couple other things with dual booting into different OSs so I can see how games play, and it's actually pretty good. I'm surprised. I didn't buy this to play video games. If it could, it was a benefit. But yeah, it's smooth as butter. And when I was exporting some of the audio for the last episode, my MacBook Pro would like the fans would boot up and it would start getting hot as it was just simply exporting an audio file. But when I did iMovie, it would get really loud. This didn't even make a noise, and it just it flew through everything. So I was really happy.
That's awesome. And yeah, that is a nice machine. I've never had the pleasure of working on one, but even in the store, I was wowed by it. So
They're cool.
congrats on that. And yeah, the joys of having desktop hardware, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
love desktops. They're not portable, which sucks, but
Right.
man, they're so powerful, or can be, unless Apple makes them usually.
Yeah, I can't. I don't think I could ever go back. I like laptops. I like the iPads. I like all that, but I don't know if I'll be able to. for me, the way I like to work, I like to have a desktop. I like to sit at a desk, and I like to work on a machine that has the potential to do whatever you can throw at it. Where, yeah, I'm sure if I paid $4,000 for the best laptop out there, it would probably do the same thing. But I don't want to spend $4,000. I want to put something that's reasonably priced, maybe more expensive than other people would, venture to go for, but will last a long time. And it's a all-in-one machine. It's a monitor with a computer attached to the back of it. I only have a cord coming out of it.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, I
It's
can't.
the dream.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. I'm very happy, and I'm lucky to have the ability to do this without kids right now. So I don't think ask me in 5 years, I'll probably won't be able to do any of this. Which is fine. That's the point. That's how life happens. So
Yeah, just enjoy it. That's pretty awesome that you have that machine.
yeah. But hey, we're back to recording on a regular schedule.
That's the hope. We missed a couple weeks. You did a good job with the solo episode. I was glad that
okay.
got released. I'm sorry that I couldn't get you files for an unreleased episode. I'm not sure where those went, and I'm not really happy that I don't have them. So we'll see if I can dig them up somewhere magically.
Life
But
happens.
yeah, I'm hoping that this is the beginning of getting back to a regular schedule with our weekly podcasts, and the two people out there can listen.
Hey, hey, this is somewhere where I get to talk and not have to.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm glad to be back with it. I'd gone on a business trip and now I'm back, so
Yay.
Thanks for holding down the fort.
I guess you're welcome, but I really didn't do much, so it was a little crazy. But I've developed a newfound respect for the editing process because of this. So thank you for the time that you spend doing this on your Saturdays and whatnot. So
yeah, it's fun.
It is interesting and fun and a nice experience.
Yeah.
But we came here to talk about something way more important, I guess.
Something that we've never talked about before in the show ever.
No, never. I don't think we've ever talked about Apple ever for an entire episode.
And boy, you and I have never talked about it together before ever.
No, we have not. So I don't even know where to start with this. I know you have some feelings right now about Apple. Would you say after the October event, or was it brewing before? Can you explain yourself a little bit so we can jump into it?
I've had a lot of theories about where they're headed and what they're doing and why, and like every fanboy and non-fanboy does right now about Apple, and
because there's nothing to do.
Yeah, and also in the past, I mean, that's just the fun of looking at Apple and trying to discern, even though they're so secretive, what the heck they're trying to do.
Yes.
And sometimes it's more interesting than others, of course. I feel like the October event really kind of, and like I was hoping for, has finally kind of pointed maybe where they're headed now. And I've heard this on other podcasts, but I wanted to talk to you about kind of how they've gotten here and where we think they're going and what we think these things mean, but also kind of where we came from in a sense. What I mean by that is that I really feel like, well, I guess we'll just start here. I really feel like that they, for at least the last year, maybe two, have really been kind of, well, maybe not the last year, maybe 2 years ago, they were really scattered on their opinions on their different products.
They went back and forth a lot on several areas, one being the Mac Pro and the Pro environment, their Pro setup for all the devices that they have.
Yeah, that's a great example. I think that's probably the most clear example, right? Because you're talking about creating an ecosystem with a bunch of professionals,
right,
who need professional tools, and yet you're not building those professional tools. And there's just been, and I don't know anything, of course, and neither do you, I would say, but
no.
For sure. But, it just looks like there's been a disconnect between the various teams that are working on all the products at Apple, who's doing what when, and it's only been in the last year and a half or so that the message is becoming clearer and more directed.
Yeah.
And I think the October event, even though we're super late talking about it on the podcast, I wanted to talk to you about it. Um, I think the October event really kind of helped clarify that and really give us their direction on things. So
Right.
that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, which is a super long way of saying that I wanted to talk about the October event and what it means.
Right. And full disclosure too, before the October event, with going back to the whole wishy-washy opinion, or not, or maybe points, areas that they're trying to focus on or not focus on with their clientele, they, I think it was probably about 2 years ago, had this really sketchy invite a select few, like 5 or 6 journalists
Oh
to come
yeah.
out to this special pro event, which it was just a briefing with five, other journalists, and then I don't recall who the three Apple
Yeah,
head
yeah.
honchos were there. But anyways, they said, "Hey, we hear what you're saying. We know you want a Mac Pro." And they had previously, before this event, had said, they didn't mention the Mac Pro at all. They kind of just let it go. They just didn't say anything. But all this flack came through, so they had this little spiel, and they said, "Okay, we hear you. They didn't say we were wrong. They just said we are actively taking in your comments, and we will be working on a new Mac Pro." They couldn't give us a date. They basically said we'll be starting on it on 2018, I think they said. Still didn't give us a release date. And then they said that we would be working on another device itself, and it was subsequently announced that same year at the what event was it? Was it the October or the iPhone event? I don't recall, but that's when they introduced the iMac Pro.
Oh yeah, I
Or was
forgot when
it
that was.
WWDC? I
That
can't.
no, I think it was. Maybe we should look it up at some point because I
Yeah,
I don't remember either. And um,
I'm looking. It was the WW. It was WWDC. It was announced June 5th, 2017.
yeah, and that was really a stopgap product. I
Yeah.
mean that as cool and as useful and as professional as that device is, and man, I would give a lot of things to
Oh
have
yeah.
one.
Yeah. $5,000.
Uh-huh. Um, it it is still an iMac, and the Mac Pro. So we're kind of skirting around it. I want to point it out just for, if somebody's listening to this at some point and
Yeah.
they don't know. The Mac Pro hasn't been updated in a very long time. I don't have the exact numbers, but the Mac Pro is Apple's tower,
Right.
um, or in the case of the latest release, their trash can.
Rightfully
Because
named.
the newest Mac Pro is like a little tube, and they were trying to get all fancy dancy with their design, and which they do, and it looked cool and it was neat looking, but it was not thermally feasible to upgrade, meaning that there's too much heat moving through it at all times. They had one single gigantic fan at the top. They had thought could move enough air through the device, which is what you're always combating with computers, right? Like you've got a computer
Thermodynamics.
and electricity is running through it, and that's how everything works. You need to keep it cool. If you don't keep it cool, it's going to basically overheat and die.
Right.
Um, and so they couldn't move enough air through the stupid can, and so realized that they had basically painted themselves into a thermal corner, so to speak, with that design. And it's funny because they were getting fancy with it, and all really anybody wants is a big tower that they can jam a bunch of crap into.
Yeah,
And
functionality. They want functionality. They
yeah,
don't care. The design is just like it's an add-on. It's a feature, but they want functionality. And if you create
that's
something
right.
that destroys functionality for the appearance, and hey, look what we can do. We can shove things into a trash can. Like that's not what pro users want.
Yeah, so they had promised, as you were just saying, they had promised a new version of the Mac Pro 2 years ago.
Hmm.
And the stopgap was the iMac Pro, which,
Right.
like I just said, is an iMac. So it's great and it's powerful, but it is an iMac. You can't jam more stuff into it. You
Yeah.
can't add on to it. It's not modular. There's no way to add more or do more with it.
In fact, it's the least modular device that I think Apple creates. Even it arguably is as modular as the MacBook Pros are, because most of that's all soldered on, but you still the ability to upgrade if you needed to. The iMac Pro requires some experience and steps and tools that I don't think an average consumer, maybe even an average pro user, would want to go through to upgrade. So
Correct. Yeah, you really need, unless you have specific models, you really need Apple to do it for you.
right,
And so that's a great point. I mean, you're talking about a group of people that do this for work and are trying to push their machines to the edge. And in order to do that, you need a machine that you can keep jamming RAM into or adding more drives or,
right,
it needs to be able to be flexible in not in a way that anything else can be, not in a portable way, not in a desktop way, just
right.
in a way that you can add more to it and or change out the configuration as you need it.
Right.
And Apple hasn't made anything like that in a long time.
Yes.
They
So
used to be the king of it, but now they haven't made anything like that in a long time.
right. And so what we were trying to get at is that they had this event, they had this special showing. Flash forward, they announced the iMac Pro to essentially ease the pain, and some people were happy with it. Some people still need that Mac Pro, and so we come
Right.
and flash forward to October, and throughout the time in between, Apple has been really enforcing the whole Pro scene. They've been going, yeah, we care about our Pro users, so we're creating new things and new lineups or adding to the lineup to appeal to more Pro users, which is kind of what happened in October with the announcement of the new Mac Mini, which hasn't been updated in God knows how long. Unfortunately, I don't know, but quite a long time.
Yeah.
And
I think longer than the Mac Pro.
correct. And
Yeah.
so they, as always, anything that is a Pro technically needs to be space gray. So they slap that on the Mac Mini, and then they have updated the internals significantly, which is great. But it still was like they just kind of breezed over it. They announced the new Air, which again was another MacBook Air, which hadn't been updated for a very long time. That current model beforehand was severely outdated hardware-wise. Still a good device, but priced too high for the
Yeah.
hardware in it. So they were really in this weird shaky spot where they introduced this new Air, and is still more expensive than the previous Air model by about $200+, which again kind of brings up another thing. But and then of course they did the iPad Pro, but
So wait, before you tell me what your opinion is on those products, and you kind of already did.
yeah,
But so let's just count them off. We got in this October event, they released the Mac Mini, they
right,
released the new MacBook Air,
correct,
and the new iPad Pro.
correct,
So, so I would say what. Let's just talk about the direction real quick, and then I want to hear what you think about them because I wanted to ask you about that too. That was
okay,
really a big part of it. So, um, the fact that okay, so I'm trying to think back on the event itself and the order in which they went, and I didn't really watch it live. I kind of like was in and out, reading some blogs or websites that were talking about it, but man, blogs aren't around anymore,
who
Josh, for goodness
blogs?
sake, right? So anyway, um, most of the event was the MacBook Air and um, well, obviously two-thirds. So you have the Mac Mini and the MacBook Air, and I think the fact that they released those slash have updated those, um, however you think of them, I think that really shows that they do care about the Mac for real.
Yeah,
They keep saying that they do, and we do see little speed bumps, I like to call them, on the MacBook Pros and the
yeah,
iMacs. And we did see the iMac Pro, but that was a while ago. Um, I feel like they actually are starting to put their money where their mouth is. Now, of course, we know that it takes them forever to develop stuff like this because, and more quickly than other companies, but still, it takes them years. We're talking 2, 3 years to develop a product like this. And they obviously started a while ago when a lot of this controversy had happened around the Mac Pro and the
right,
Macs and all that stuff. And so it's good to see that they've been able to right the ship, I would say. And so I feel like we're starting to see that they're going in the direction of the Mac again. Is that, do you feel that same love that they're giving the Mac, or is it just me?
I think it's getting more. They're splitting it more. They're still really heavily on their mobile devices, which you kind of already glazed over it. But you said that the October event was the Air, the Mini, and then the iPad Pro. They
Right.
spent at least half, if not more, on the iPad Pro
Yeah.
update. So they spent more time on a mobile device, which is a fantastic device. Don't get me wrong, and extremely powerful for even at the price. It is expensive, but you're getting a pro device. But they spent a lot of time, half the time, on the October event with a mobile device, and the argument has been, even with the announcement of the Mac Pro, the iMac Pro, and so forth, is that Apple seems to be focusing too much to people's liking on mobile devices, and the argument now becomes, uh, are is Apple going to move away from Mac and update it not as regularly? Maybe we'll get a Mac Pro, and then that'll cover us for a little while, and they'll just go back to focusing on the iPad and the phone and whatnot. So I think, yes, they are showing more love for the Mac. Yes, they definitely are. They finally updated things that were desperately needed to be updated. People are still waiting on a Mac Pro. The expectation wasn't set that it would be soon. They did specifically say that they were starting to work on it in 2017 into 2018.
Right, right,
So
yeah.
they never said they were going to release it. So you can't hold them. You can't you basically say, hey, you told me we're going to have it soon. They didn't say that. They said they had to do a lot of work.
Right.
But I still feel that the Mac has less of a priority than the iPad and their mobile devices, for a good reason, though.
It definitely does. And I'm glad that you said all those things, because want to I want to disagree with those people that say, and I know that your opinion is a little bit different than that what you said earlier,
Mm-hmm.
that you're kind of playing devil's advocate on that. And I'm glad, because I want to bring that up, and that's where I wanted it to go. And that is that, yes, they do and will always, I would say, until it's not making them so much money, have a more mobile focused lineup and a more mobile focused set of teams. The iPhone is their main product, and the iPad is kind of in there. It's murky. It's, who knows for sure. But for me, this was like a dual fun event, because
You got both.
I yeah, you got both. I I don't feel like they've been giving the Mac the love that they should have, but also the iPad has been sitting stagnant forever. And to me, I've come up through Apple since the days of Tiger, which is not that far away. There's people way, have been holding out way longer than I have, but still,
Yeah.
to me, Apple has always pushed mobile as their future state of computing, and the iPad was like the flagship of that when it first came out. And so we have Tim Cook, who took over, and I'm not blaming Tim Cook for anything, because I think he's done a phenomenal job in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah, for
But
sure.
but somehow, in some ways, Apple's stagnated, and now we have these intermittent updates every year to these products. And the way it looked like was there were fewer Macs, they're getting more expensive. The iPad is looking mostly the same every year and not having any changes really. The iPhones are looking mostly the same every year. And this is the first event where it's not that I was like blown away, but it's the first time where I was like, wow, they actually did something. And the industrial design on the iPad is phenomenal, and
Right.
it actually is a professional device. Like, it's so powerful and capable.
Yeah.
Granted, it's not at Mac level, in my opinion, of like professional
It's getting to
device.
the price of a MacBook Pro. You could
The
really
price
max it.
wise, it is for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But like capability wise, I still feel like a professional can do things way quicker on a Mac than they could with an iPad, but it's getting there, and it's it's a trade-off with the iPad that you can now sanely say, I'll just use an iPad because I love the mobility of it. Like there's something added when you say I will choose the iPad because of, instead of just like, well, I'm going to hamper myself by choosing the iPad because, it's an iPad and I want to try and make it work. No,
Yeah.
that's not the case. It's a professional device. You're taking trade-offs. And so not only is this like them getting, to me, them getting back to the Mac, which is actually the name of an event from a long time ago,
Yes.
but where they are actually putting some money towards and people towards building the Mac lineup up a little bit again, but it's also them getting back on track for their future state, for their future, outlook on how computing should be.
Yeah.
And that was the exciting part about it because it seems like finally they have a vision for everything that they're doing.
Yeah. And they have devices which can appeal to everybody else that aren't pro users. Like the Air is a perfect laptop. I mean, they upgraded it, gave it a new Retina display, which is much needed. They updated the internals, and yeah, it's space gray, but it's not pro. But the laptop itself is amazing and is great for, I would say, a college student if they can afford it.
Right.
Unfortunately, that brings up the issue with there's nothing cheap that is sold by Apple. I don't, even the Mac Mini is reaching the
Yeah.
800 mark. The
Well, it's
cheapest,
all getting more expensive every time too.
yeah. So it's hard for people to go, well, I can't afford a Mac because it's so expensive. The cheapest thing that you can get is the 6th gen iPad, which is still an amazing product for
Oh, it's
$325.
such a deal. Yeah.
And I would strongly recommend it, but I mean, some people don't want to make that sacrifice to go to the iPad, and they want to look at something that's in a MacBook or a laptop platform, or maybe a desktop platform, and you definitely get up there, and it does cause, to me, it causes like an inconsistent pricing and value. Uh, it creates some different value for people looking at picking up a laptop for whatever reason, or a device for whatever reason, and that's where I'm concerned about Apple. I mean, yes, we're focusing on now the Mac more than we have before, which is good, but we're still killing it in the mobile department. That's awesome. We're not talking about the TV because that's a whole different story. Or the monitors that they used to sell that they may or may not be working on again. But
To be clear, the TV is the best out there.
yeah,
It's
it's still
still not their
expensive.
greatest product, but it's the best one out there for sure.
Yeah, I don't have one. I think it's the only Apple product I don't have. Now that I
Yeah.
think about it. But yeah, they moved away from a lot. But the problem I have is the inconsistent pricing. What I mean by this is if you go now, and this might have changed, I doubt it, but at the time of the October event, the new MacBook Air came out, and the pricing started above. It was, I think, 11. It was like 1,100.
11.99, yeah.
Yeah, 11.99. But the old Air still stayed at
9.99.
9.99, which bothers me quite a lot because that is still, in my eyes, even before the event, was not a 9.99 device. It was definitely lower than that because of the internals that it had, and I think people are still buying it. I know someone that bought that just a year ago, and I was scratching my head. Why? Why would you do
Yeah, I
that?
kind of disagree because I think that it's still a supported device and the
Yes.
internals aren't bad. They're fine.
But
So,
let me stop you there too, because then if you talk about the iPhone 10 and then the iPhone
oh God,
10s,
don't get me started.
they discontinued the 10, but they don't. I get.
For like a hot minute.
I What
We
do you
should
mean?
talk about that at some point.
Wait, what do you mean they did? I thought I just was at a store.
No,
They're
they
like,
did. They did discontinue it, and they even removed it from their site. But then, did you read all the reports about the slump in sales and crap? And they started firing up all the iPhone 10 factories again.
really? I did not know that.
Yeah. So the 10R and the 10R especially has been slumping in sales in certain spots, and in Japan especially, they are dropping the price on it and subsidizing the
Wow.
crap out of it because the sales have not been good enough. And so at the same time, there was reports of them firing up the iPhone 10, not the 10R or the 10s, but the iPhone 10 factories again because they have a whole bunch of unused LCD or OLEDs and stuff like that that they need to get out. And I don't know if that means that they're producing iPhone 10s that then are going to go onto shelves to act like, oh, this is the old one, but we'll give you a deal
Yeah.
type situation because it's still not on their website.
No,
I
it's
don't
not.
understand that. I was really hoping that the 10s and the 10R would come out and they'd drop the 10 down, to
No,
something
they just
lower.
discontinued because I was
And it
at a
just
store.
disappeared. Yeah.
And I was at a store waiting to get my iMac, and the guy in front of me wanted to buy a 10, and the guy at the Genius Bar was like, "We don't have 10s anymore." He's like, "But you just released a new phone, and you don't have the previous phone?" He's like, "Yeah, we don't sell them anymore." He just like looked at me, like looked at the guy, then turned around and was like, "What?" And I'm like, "Well, you can." And then of course, as he's walking by, like, you can go to like AT&T and buy it there. He goes, "Yeah, but I don't want to deal with that." But like, it just blew my mind. You can do that for your iPhone 10, but you don't do that or you don't apply that same logic, in my understanding, in my eyes, to the previous generation Mac or MacBook Air. So that I had a problem with that, and I still do because they haven't dropped the price. And
See, I agree with you on the cost situation. And I think it was further magnified by the fact that until this October event, your choice was this garbage, which I'm calling it garbage, even though it's awesome
it's still good.
in a lot of ways.
It's
Garbage previous MacBook Air, or then you step right up into the MacBook Pro, and you're talking about a $1,300, $1,400. No, it's like a $1,500 product to start.
with or without Touch Bar, depending. And even the the MacBook itself is still $1,300, $1,200
Yeah,
for that.
you're talking
that
about the Pro.
product. No, just the MacBook.
Oh, I forgot about the.
Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
my goodness.
And because
Yeah,
people still buy that, and on
I
top
forgot
of
about that thing.
Exactly.
The
It's
single port MacBook.
yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's
Which
even worse. Like, and this was the problem I was having when I was trying to buy a Mac for school, 2 years ago.
yeah,
And I'm sitting on a MacBook Pro 2016 right now, and
such a gorgeous screen.
it
So
was
good.
it is amazing, but it was expensive as heck.
Oh, yeah, of
and
course.
I love it, and I'm gonna hopefully keep it for the next 7 to 10 years.
Mhm.
But still, it was hard to swallow because I'm sitting there going, well, I want a Mac, but I really don't want to spend for a MacBook Pro, and yet my other option is a MacBook Air. I don't want to buy the MacBook because it was so underpowered, and in a lot of ways it still is.
Yeah, and the fact that, but you compare it now that you have, how confusing would this be, Josh? If I were to go to Apple and I wanted to buy a new laptop, and
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh, here's the Air," and then we also have the MacBook, and then we have the MacBook Pro, and then you're looking at them like, "Okay, what's the difference?" I'm like, "Well, this has this the difference
No.
between the MacBook and the Air, it's silly. Like, why
No,
do they?
it is silly.
Why do
It
they
is
have
so
these?
silly. And I totally agree with you. Like before, I felt like the MacBook was supposed to be the spiritual successor to the
Of the
MacBook Air.
Exactly. I think most
And
people thought that as well.
yeah, and I feel like that's how it was branded. And yet, because it was it was thinner than Air.
Yes.
It was thinner and lighter and yeah, it was underpowered, but darn it, if you can't take this anywhere, you can't take anything
It's
with
like
you.
a glorified, expensive Chromebook.
Yeah, it was like the iPad laptop,
Yeah.
You can't touch the screen, but guess what? You can do anything Mac on it if you are willing to wait a few minutes.
And listen to it didn't even have fans, doesn't it? Not have fans?
It does not have fans, and I was so impressed by that. But so now you've got, and I agree with you. Like before, your problem was that you don't have a mid tier. It really, that's the problem, right? Like
Yeah.
you've got this low end laptop which is supposed to be mid tier, and it's not because it's low end compared
Right.
to the rest of the market,
Right.
and yet you're still paying mid tier price or
Mhm.
even high end price, and then you have to step into a MacBook Pro because the MacBook is just not. It's the MacBook is like a secondary computer, It's not really meant to be your primary machine,
It's not your
in
main
my
driver,
opinion.
yeah.
But now your new problem, just like you're saying, is confusion. Now you go into a store, you've got the MacBook, you've got the MacBook Air, you've got the MacBook Air, and then you've got the MacBook Pro.
Yes.
So which of
Thank
the
you
two
for-
MacBook Airs, the MacBooks or the MacBook Pro, do you want to take? And this is why I used to applaud their approach Steve Jobs was a jerk. I will say it to the end of my days that he was a jerk as far as I understand, and yet he was brilliant. Like, he drew that grid of four and said we need a pro desktop, a pro laptop, a consumer desktop, and a consumer laptop. And that's it. You go into an Apple store and you choose what you want. Do you want a laptop? Yes. Do you want it to be pro? Yes. Done. Here.
Yeah,
Do you
there's
want
no
it to
ifs
be
and
consumer? Done. Here. Like, that was the best part of the Apple Store.
Pick your
You walk in and you know
configurations.
what you wanted,
Yeah.
and those
now
were the days.
Now you can't do it. Now you're just extremely confused. And then you wonder if you should even get a Mac and you should go to an iPad Pro, which even then you go in and you can get the iPad 6th generation. You can get the iPad, the previous iPad Pro, and then the new iPad Pro. And the old iPad Pro is only $100 cheaper.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's true. And
So,
I think the 6th gen iPad is a huge value. Like,
yeah.
if you can get away with using an iPad, just buy that.
Oh,
It's $329 for goodness sake. It's so
and
cheap.
I'm not done because there's still the or the iPad Mini 4, which they slid
I
into.
can't understand why that's still there. I don't get
They
it.
slid it in to the event. They're like, "Hey, we love iPads. We love our iPad 6th Gen. We love our
Yeah,
Mini
I
4."
don't
And
get
everyone's like, "What? Wait, we still sell those? People still buy those things?"
They worked really hard to antiquate them and get them out, and just
Yeah.
it's
Have you ever
just
heard of the iPad Mini 3s? Exactly.
yeah.
So,
Well, and so okay, you've got this confusion state, so and that's where I'm taking the event, right? Like, at least we are getting some movement. At least we're seeing them give some kind of Mac update. So now they need to tidy it up.
mhm.
That's the point. And or they need to bridge for real with the iPad Pro, because that's where they're going. And this was the first step in that direction.
Yes.
They're really pushing for the iPads to become the replacement mobile computers, which I'm all for. I've wanted that since the iPad came out. It's just they've been sitting on it for so long. I mean, some of them even worked better as cutting boards than they did as iPads. Like, it's just and part of that has been iOS. They're taking a long time to move through iOS, and I
Yeah.
think part of that was that difference of opinion that they had. I don't know what it was, or even if it was real.
Internally,
Maybe I'm
yeah.
making it up. But, like, I feel like they didn't have a vision anymore for a long while, and now they're starting to get back to it.
Yeah, so it definitely causes confusion for consumers and even avid Apple fans, and you look at the iPad, you look at how Microsoft and other products or other companies have created like the Surface, and the Surface Pro is on its 6th generation. They made a Surface Book Pro, whatever the
Yeah.
heck it's called, because it's both touchscreen and foldable to be a tablet, but also has a full keyboard and is basically a full-fledged pro laptop. And then
Don't
you
forget
have
about the Surface Go.
the Surface Go, which is the economy version, which is supposed to be an iPad killer, but that's that. Then they
I
have
don't
this.
agree with Microsoft's approach on their OS, but they are absolutely building products that people want. And so I really would like them to keep pushing that way, because they're, I think, putting the squeeze on Apple on that whole
Yes.
thing.
Yeah, this is where I want to applaud them, Microsoft, for
Yes,
doing that. And then please continue to do that, because hopefully that'll push Apple to do the same
totally
and go
agree.
back to the 4 grid thing, because uh, I am
Totally agree.
glad as an educated consumer when going to Apple, I can make that decision. But for somebody who doesn't want to spend a new hours and days trying to figure out the best product, and they just want to do, okay, I want this and this. What laptop can I get? They want one answer. They don't want, well, you can do this if you want to spend extra, or you can do an iPad Pro, and then you get all these ideas from the genius, and like
Hey,
yeah,
I was one of those. Don't
and,
don't say it like that.
and essentially you just go, well, to heck with this. I'm just gonna go to Microsoft or whoever the stores that they somehow have, and I'm gonna get a Surface Go, or the new Surface Pro 6. So yeah, keep it up, push some pressure on Apple, and hopefully we can get back to not the good old days. I wouldn't want to say that because I don't know what those are, because I've never been in the good old days of Apple. That's something you did experience, or you had experience.
Well,
I
no, those weren't the good old days,
Okay.
but they were better.
I think for today that's enough for us to rant about this. I hope that made sense to some people.
I hope so too. It made sense to me. I'm people, I think.
Well, and we'll see what comes. I mean, it's still 2018. 2019 could bring a new beginning, or not new beginning, but new announcements. We don't know. We didn't get, full disclosure, we didn't get any updates to the iMac lines. No hardware
Oh, shut it.
bumps.
They just did that.
They didn't do any hardware bumps. They usually kind of lead to it, and there were some leaks saying that they could, but you probably won't see that until next year, and then WWDC is just around the corner. For those who don't know, it's the developer conference,
Yeah.
and that might release some new information about the Mac Pro. We have plenty of time in between then, and lots can happen. As we can see, they dished out 2 huge events in 2 months, so that's pretty cool.
Should be interesting. I wonder when they'll actually have more information about the Mac Pro. I doubt that they will soon because I don't know, I feel like when they talked about it the last time, they had just started working on it. So
Yeah, and that's okay. You know what? I would rather them take the time and make something worth it than to rush something and get it out and it look like a trash can. That's all I want, is not a trash can.
just put it in a freaking big box.
I don't
For
care if
goodness
it's
sake.
put an Apple logo on it, make it silver. Please, for the love of God, do not do space gray as the only option. And yeah, we'll see. I already told my wife that I was going to sell my kidney to get one because once in my life I wanted to own a Mac Pro. So
I know, it's the dream. I always wanted one.
I just
They're
want. I
so
don't
cool.
care if it's. You know what? I might up buying the cheese grater just because I want to find a cheese grater and have it sitting in my office, not working, just sitting there. Like, look at I have.
Yeah. Well, and I had a G5 that I never used sitting in my closet for a while because I wanted one of those cheese graters so bad.
They're so cool.
We talked about building a bench out of 2 of the cases for a while
That's
because you
hilarious.
could put like wood right between those
Yeah,
handles and stuff.
yeah, which was a
So
genius idea, by the way.
yes, well, and
Handles.
they certainly did not cut up your hands as you lifted them onto counters for maintenance. My goodness, they were rough. They were rough, but still,
Reliving the glory days, Josh.
the glory days. All of the liquid cooling issues and problems with the processors. Those are so great. Anyway, moving on.
Yes. Let's move on to the good old section of the rant. And if you don't mind, I will go and talk about Black Friday shopping because I don't understand it. I've never understand waking up and leaving from now, which is turning into Thanksgiving, Black Friday shopping, leaving Thanksgiving to go stand in line to get deals that now can be bought online and are starting the same day, or if not earlier. A perfect example is the iPad deal that was in Target and Walmart, where you can get the iPad 6th Gen for $250, or was it $260 or $280? I don't remember. But I think it was $250. $5. Yeah, $255. But anyways, you could order that online and not have to leave your seat, which I think is better than having to leave Thanksgiving dinner to go stand in line in the cold if you're in, an area where it's cold during Thanksgiving and you're not in like California. But I just don't get it. It kind of ruins for me the holiday. It doesn't bother me anymore because everybody goes after the fact and actually goes in my family on Friday. But there was a time, I think it was 2 years ago, where like they started doing this new thing on like we'll open up at 4 p.m. on Thursday on Thanksgiving, and I just think of the people working that day and missing out on their Thanksgiving dinner, and also the people who are leaving their Thanksgiving dinner to go do this. So I don't know why they started to change Black Friday to let's include Thursday, Friday, and Monday for Cyber Monday, but I think it's all sort of weird and confusing and ruins, the holidays for me. But I just stop changing it, leave it to Black Friday so that everybody goes home full and passes out after eating Thanksgiving dinner and wakes up and, can go through that whole process. So
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't like. I never liked that it was creeping into Thursday. Black Friday creeping into Thursday. It never made sense. But still, uh, I've done a lesser version, as in worked them. So I've worked at a couple retail stores during Black Friday, and it wasn't during the time that they creeped into Thursday, but it certainly I had to be there at like 3 or 4 a.m. and work it. So it does. Even then, it was ruining that Thursday experience because that was supposed to be your time off. So
Yeah,
and the mobs of people are just it's something else.
it
So
is.
I've never been into Black Friday in general, but yes, please just keep it to Black Friday if that's what you must do.
Yeah,
Just keep it on Black Friday. I agree with you.
it's just
I
sad.
fully endorse Cyber Monday. I love Cyber Monday because Cyber Monday is cyber, There's no
You can sit at your desk wherever you are, and
yeah, it's in the comfort of your own whatever you do. Whether you have an iPad Pro or a MacBook Air or an iMac, you're sitting somewhere and just using your computer.
yeah,
So you're not getting trampled
or stabbed.
or stabbed. Yeah, that's a new thing, right? So you stab people while you're in line?
Apparently,
Okay.
that's
So
it.
yeah, I agree with you. Is what I not that it matters if I agree with you or not. I appreciate your rant.
Thank you.
So I guess it's my turn.
Yeah, yeah, about being direct and not being
Yeah,
not.
I've encountered this a lot in the past couple
Interesting.
months,
Hmm.
and I I don't know how do I put this.
Careful.
Yeah, I don't like when people dance around stuff. I would rather be direct, and
Yes.
I don't. I'm okay with sugarcoating. I'm okay with trying to be diplomatic. I like all that actually quite a bit. It's when you have a problem with a person and you complain about that problem, but you have never actually confronted them or talked to them about it. So now the problem is really just made up until you actually confront them about it.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't want to get specific, of course, but it could be Sally really thinks that her sister shouldn't have done X, Y, and Z during the holiday season and just complains and tells everybody how terrible she is and what she did. And yet, did you actually confront your sister about that and talk to your sister about that issue? Or do you just want to sit around and complain about it? And I'm finding more and more that a lot of people just like to sit around and complain about this stuff when I feel like there are answers and solutions to these problems that aren't real problems. There are real problems, but these aren't them. Complaining about somebody where an issue is small is not a problem. Just go talk to them about it, for goodness sake. And I just can't stand when we're not being direct about stuff, and it's not giving the other person a chance to even have a say or a chance to talk about how they feel about it or maybe help you see their perspective. Like, there's a lot behind it, and I think getting out of your own way to maybe try and talk with the other person before you go around and talk with all these other people about how terrible they are might be the best way to do it. So I don't know. I'm still new at this, life, but um, I, I feel like it's better to talk it through than to just dance around it and then go complain. Like, I certainly have done my share. I'm still going. I'm sorry. I
You're
certainly
fine.
have done my share of avoiding conflict, but I didn't then go and complain and slander somebody instead of, slander the person that I was avoiding. If I have a problem that needs to be addressed, I will go address it with that person. And then if there's a further problem or if they treat me poorly, then we can have other discussions with other people that are involved. I feel like this is not that hard, and yet I feel like it's very simple. It's not easy to do, but it's very simple and
Once
straightforward.
it's
And
been executed, yeah.
yeah, I think that it takes some courage, of course, and there may be anxiety, sometimes a lot, but it's something that needs to be done if you want to actually have some solutions instead of just sitting around and having all these problems visited upon you that aren't really problems. There are people with real problems. Cancer is a real problem,
Yes.
but this is not. And so go talk to people, for goodness sake. And rant.
One thing to add on that is that it's worse too when you're the receiver of whoever's slandering, as you said.
Oh, that's even the
And
worst.
the worst part
Yes.
is that I shut down and be like, oh, that's nice, or I purposely ignore it and I don't respond to it, like they're trying to egg you on to get a response out of you, and then they get angry when you're like, well, maybe, but you try and basically try
Walk
and
away.
walk away or rationalize why someone might have to basically rationalize the situation, and the person gets offended and walks away. So, and I do the whole walk away thing, and I think that also offends people. And guess what? I don't care, but I don't want to be the person of receiving that, being the person receiving the slander, as in they're venting to you about it, because that just makes it even more awkward. And if somebody else that you're venting to is basically telling you like, dude, just talk to the person, you should
Yeah.
you should probably stop and just go talk to the person.
No, you're right. That's even worse. That's you somehow hear about all these problems that have been going on, and I I part of the reason I cannot stand when people are not direct about stuff like that is because of years of stuff like that for me, where people have said all kinds of things to all kinds of people about things that you were doing, and you somehow still never heard that there was any kind of problem. And for me, I agree that that burns me up, and then I shut down, and then I just push you away. I'm done. I have no use for people who are going to treat people like that, and I have no use for people who aren't going to come to me with the problem if there's a problem. Like if I'm doing something that is so bad that you are so broken up about it, we need to talk about it, and I can help you. And I usually am very understanding and considerate. There's no reason that we shouldn't have a conversation. And I think you make a great point because I cannot stand when people do that. Cannot stand it. So,
Yep.
end rant.
Okay, done. That was. It's been a while, so you deserve the longer
I don't know
rant.
about that. I probably could have just summed it up in like 2 or 3 sentences and been done.
That would be no fun.
Oh well. This way, there's more sentences involved for more people to get offended.
Sweet. That's what we're
Perfect.
here for, right? Thank you all for listening to our 26th episode. You can follow the show on Twitter at DigitalDividePC or send us feedback by sending an email to askdigitaldivide@gmail.com. You can check all this information, including our past episodes, on our website at www.digitaldividepodcast.com. Additionally, you can follow our personal accounts. I'm on Twitter at JustinFry121. And Josh, where can people find you?
You can. I haven't done this in a long time. My goodness. You can find me on Twitter at JCharletto. That's my first initial last name, JCIARLETTO. Or you can email me at josh@charletto.com.
If you liked this episode or any of our other episodes, give us a review on iTunes or anywhere podcasts can be heard. And until next time, take care.
Bye.